Somebody's a liar, liar, pants on fire, and they've just been exposed with an all-new website of receipts, proof, timelines, screenshots, everything to prove that Blake Lively is not being honest with us. I hope you're ready. We're going to get into the lies Blake Lively has told us, exposed by Justin Baldoni's new evidence. We have Ryan Reynolds doing some stage paparazzi pics. A lot happened over the weekend. I hope you're ready. Let's dive in. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. What's going on? Happy Monday, everybody in the club. In the club, we all fam. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Welcome on in. We have another, it's just like every week there's a new bombshell. Another bombshell has entered the villa. And so the villa has been entered with all new receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, everything. There's a lot that was revealed. Justin Baldoni launched a new website called thelawsuitinfo.com where he revealed an updated, amended complaint against the New York Times, where he gets more into the evidence against the New York Times with this alleged smear campaign. It's a lot. We'll get into that. We also have his timeline of events, which is how many pages? Like 127 pages. No, it's 168 pages that gets into the full timeline from back in, what was it, 2019 with not Blake Lively, with what's her name, Colleen Hoover, when Justin Baldoni first got connected with Colleen Hoover, and then eventually we got to the promotional campaign and where we are now with the lawsuits. But he outlines everything. Allison Myers says, thanks for doing the work for us. What, if anything, can Blake do to fix this? Crazy. Well, Allison Myers, thank you for the super chat. What can Blake do to fix this? So I was actually I just finished taping the Hollywood Raw podcast, which will drop on Wednesday. I get into a lot of it. It kind of seems like Dax and Adam were both kind of leaning more towards Team Blake going into all of this. So I added some good commentary. I think I swayed Dax a little bit, but there's a new episode of the Hollywood Raw podcast dropping on Wednesday, so be sure to tune in for that. Also talked a bit about the Grammys. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours. We had like people protesting in downtown LA and they were like blocking the freeways. And then we had the Grammys and suddenly Beyonce's a country music star. And my head is spinning, but we'll get into all of it today. A lot to dive into, but I did want to start off with a couple of shout outs for people that are leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have Jen Jill Watt who said, Zack, will you marry me? Obsessed is an understatement. Living for Zack's takes and no holds barred reporting. His wit and charm hooked me at the first listen. Thank you. We have Horse Drawer. Great show. Zack is a very smart, thoughtful, young person. And yes, 31 is young for such a clear, conscious perspective. Keep up the great work, Zack. Love you. And Donna, too. Love Donna Bowling. We have Ali Boo, 25, says, new follower, latest obsession. OMG, I'm so glad I found a podcast that talks about pop culture and truth. Can't wait to binge older episodes. Keep doing the amazing work, Zack. Only wish I found your podcast sooner. We also have Chef Stu said, one of my faves to listen to daily. Thank you, Stu. And then Liz 22758 says, the best. I've never left a review before, but Zack deserves it. I'm now a functional nutritionist practitioner, but also a former lawyer. I can say that Zack nails it every time. I'm so impressed with his intelligence, creativity, work ethic, and common sense, which is hard to find these days. I don't have time for pop culture podcasts, etc., but don't really even care about it. But I listen to Zack when I need a little levity and light. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. I love you. Everybody that's left me a negative review thinks that I hate women or thinks that I'm a crazy anti-vax conspiracy theorist. Neither of which are true. But thanks, guys. I love you. And I appreciate all the love. Okay, shall we dive in? Happy birthday, Christopher. Christopher, it is Christopher Liverman's birthday today. Shout out, Chris. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Okay, so I see everyone giving Christopher birthday shout outs in the live chat. Go, Zack, Pack, go. Where do we want to begin? Okay, so I'm just going to summarize everything. We're not going to go page by page, line by line, because if you've been following this story closely, there's not, I'll be honest, a ton of new information that came out in this website. It's more of just a consolidated, organized outline of the information. So, Baldoni published this new website. As we know, there's a hearing that's happening this week where the lawyers will be battling it out in court because Blake Lively continues to try and get a gag order against Justin Baldoni and his attorney because she doesn't want them to continue releasing new information about the case. They try to prevent them from publishing this website, but the website made it to publish. We'll see if the website has to be taken down. So, if anything, we should download the PDFs. I think that this was very deliberate to not make the website like a standalone page with all of the information, but I think they made the downloads as PDFs. That way, people can save them. People like myself can download the PDF and save it. So, should this website be taken down or ordered to be taken down by the judge, we still have access to them. So, I recommend you downloading it now. That said, so he has an amended complaint filed against the New York Times. His lawsuit, I believe, was for like was it 120? $120 million that he was suing the New York Times for claiming that they were in collusion or they colluded with Blake Lively and her team to put out this article that they claim is defamation. And so he's suing them for libel, promissory fraud, breach of implied in fact contract. Because as we know, not only did they give him only 14 hours overnight to actually respond to any of the allegations, but they ended up publishing it. I believe it was about 2 hours earlier. So they reached out to him at 10 p.m. December 20th, said, hey, you have until noon tomorrow to give us a statement or to give us your side of the story. We know that they ended up publishing the article, I believe, around 10 a.m. Eastern. So it was 2 hours earlier than what they told him his deadline was. So I think, credit to this woman on TikTok, and I believe the originator of this information was this woman, Gouge, on TikTok, who I guess dug into the metadata. Again, the details of the metadata and how this information came to light, it's starting to look like maybe Gouge Magouge was the person that put this information out first. So credit to Miss Gouge. Before she comes up into my comments and goes, you know, give me credit. So credit to Gouge. But so I guess Gouge dug up people are saying it's not metadata, but I'm also hearing that it is referred to as metadata, where you see the dates and the timestamps of when some of the media and back end stuff was done on the New York Times website. And so based off of that, you can then see that the New York Times had been working on this article for quite some time. So unconfirmed exactly, like I haven't been able to double confirm this, but it appears Blake Lively's complaint was filed on December 20th, which was the day before the article was published in the New York Times on December 21st. But we have timestamps dating back weeks that show that the New York Times was working on this story for quite some time. So we're at least seeing that they were working on the story prior to the CRD complaint being filed in California. So they at least knew about these allegations. So it's interesting that they only reached out to Justin Baldoni on the evening of, or not even evening, it was 10 p.m., the night of December 20th, which was the night before the article was published publicly. So with the info in regards to the metadata, he's amended his complaint against the New York Times. For the most part, it's all still the same, with exception for him saying, like, here's more evidence and proof that they had been working on this article for quite some time, which was prior to the filing of the CRD complaint, which to me tells me that there was some, I mean, I feel like collusion is a really strong word, and it's going to be hard to prove collusion in court, but there was at least correspondence between Blake Lively's team and the New York Times. There were conversations that were happening. There were people that were giving them access to these text messages ahead of the complaint actually being filed. And I think the actual Inner City Press on X is giving us minute by minute updates. Oh, okay. Yes. I like Inner City Press. I believe Inner City Press has been on this podcast before. I think for the Jen Shaw trial, I believe I had him call in live from the courthouse. Maybe I'll reach out to him again and see if he'd be willing to give us updates on, but I'll pull him up. That way we can see if there's any new, because I believe they are in court. Yes. Is he? Yep. Okay. So he is giving us, wow. Oh, yeah, literally minute by minute updates. So maybe we'll cover that in a bit. But so the New York Times article, it's obvious that they were working on this for quite some time, is basically the point. And he's now introduced the metadata. So you don't really need to read the entire New York Times complaint all over again. Just know that the info that Googe was reporting on TikTok had now been entered. And I believe Blake Lively's team has since responded to this by saying these are internet sleuths, these are unsubstantiated claims. They're basically, saying that this isn't reliable information because the information was put together by a TikToker. And my reaction to that is it's like, well, yeah, ding dong. If your client's allegations are so easily debunked by internet sleuths, then maybe your client's a fucking moron that doesn't have the evidence that they claim that they have. Because there is no evidence. We have not seen a single bit of evidence in regard to Blake Lively's side, with exception for the text messages that were provided in the initial complaint and lawsuit that she filed. But we now know that those text messages were altered and lacking context. So there you go. So that's the New York Times piece. And then there's the timeline. So the timeline is very detailed and I think a very strong case for Baldoni because he gets into the original correspondence with Colleen Hoover all the way up until modern day. We don't need to go through the exact timeline because I feel like we've covered a lot of these details as it is, and there's not a ton of new information that's come out. There's additional little pieces that add more context or more details to the stuff we already know. There was already an intimacy coordinator. And so I guess let's get into that. So these are the three biggest lies that Blake Lively has told in her initial court filing, in the CRD complaint and in her lawsuit. We'll get into the three biggest lies that she said, because a lot of this is he said, she said. There's a lot of evidence to back up his claims, like the footage, the text messages, the emails. But I would say the three biggest, like, confidently disputed lies that she told in her CRD complaint, we'll get into, and I'll pull up the evidence that he released in this new website. But before we dive into all of that, I did want to give some love and a shout out to this week's sponsor, and that is Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat in 2 minutes. Yum, yum, yum. So that you can feel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Right? Because if things are busy, if life is chaotic like me, I'm running from studio to studio and I'm, taping this and walking the dogs and trying to do all these things. And what I love is the convenience that Factor provides because the meals are already there and ready for me. I just pop it into the microwave, eat it. I don't have to worry about cooking dinner or lunch, right? Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. You lose up to 8 pounds in weeks with Factor's keto meals based on randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on the diet and exercise, but it's a great option. With over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. I'm personally on the Protein Plus because I'm trying to build up, trying to add some muscle. Oh, trying to get ready for the new year. Let's get it. Okay. But you can reach your goals this year with ingredients that you can trust and the convenience that just can't be beat, right? Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/nofilter50off and use code nofilter50off. That's no filter, NOFILTER, the number 50, off, OFF, no filter 50 off. And you'll get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's factormeals.com/nofilter50off. That's code nofilter50off at factormeals.com/nofilter50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Go right now. Okay, Blake Lively, 3 biggest lies Blake Lively has told, starting with this alleged fat shaming. Dun, 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 dun. So, I mean, listen, Blake Lively, if you want to try out Factor meals, it's a suggestion, not trying to fat shame anybody with these recommendations because it's actually quite delicious and helps you meet your goals. But so When it comes to the allegation of fat shaming, Blake Lively says so there are a couple of things that are referenced. One, Justin Baldoni asking her weight of her trainer, which she claims was part of the shaming. And then there was also the alleged lift scene that she claims didn't exist. And then there was a connection that he made to what she claims was a weight loss expert, which is now being shown as a wellness coach. So first up in the timeline, Justin Baldoni releases these text messages. One of them, or there's correspondence that he releases between himself and the trainer. So the trainer was originally Blake Lively's trainer. She introduced him to Justin Baldoni so that he could help him prepare for the film. And so we see the text message here with the initial introduction. We also get a meal plan that the trainer gave to Justin Baldoni so that way he can start to prepare. And then we have Blake Lively, who, and the series of text messages that are released on this website rather, that talk about Blake Lively asking for, any of the intimate scenes to be filmed in phase 2, or at least later into production, because she wasn't feeling entirely secure with her body. She had just had a baby. And so through these text message threads, we see that Justin Baldoni is very much trying to make Blake feel secure, right? She's talking about how she's insecure with her body, and he's like, listen, if you want to delay production with some of these scenes, we can work on that. I can't guarantee anything, but we can work on it, and just know that you're going to do fantastic. It's going to be great. Like, he really goes into trying to make sure that she feels comfortable and safe in this environment, right? Because obviously, if you just have a baby, you can feel a little insecure with your body, right? You may not fully feel in shape. Um, but so she asked specifically, what's the chance that we can do body scenes at the end of the schedule? And he said, honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to the schedule right now. I just turned in a rewrite, so they're hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and other cast availability, etc. So to be honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. As soon as I have a rough schedule that's even remotely accurate, I'll share, and I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. So here, she's expressing her insecurities regarding her body, and he's very much validating her. Now, arguably, people can say, oh, well, that's a little inappropriate for him to be commenting on her body. But you can see based off of these text threads that she's the one that's talking about her insecurities, and he's validating her, saying he wants her to feel comfortable. He wants her to feel safe on set, which counters her claims that he was shaming her for her weight. Furthermore, we find out about this, what she claimed was a weight loss specialist. And so we now see that, because we have messages between him and Blake, as well as messages between him and who this person is, which is a wellness coach. So it's not a weight loss expert. Obviously, wellness coaches can specialize in weight loss amongst other things. But now we get context as to why he referred Blake to this wellness coach. And it was because she had come down with strep. And so it appears she got sick a couple of times during the production of the film. The first time being strep, which is when he connects her to his wellness coach. So they can, do a probiotic protocol. I mean, listen, the integrative medicine stuff is very much fixated on healing the gut, and the gut being, if your gut's out of whack, then there are a lot of other things that can manifest, a lot of comorbid conditions that are associated with gut issues. And so it appears that was the case with this wellness coach that Blake Lively said was a weight loss specialist. So even though a wellness coach can specialize in helping people get their hormones in balance, or fight chronic infections, or in some cases lose weight, then that's part of the practice. But that's not what the recommendation was for. The recommendation was in regards to Blake coming down with strep throat, which we see that's backed by the evidence. And then the other biggest piece of evidence that he provides to dispute her fat shaming claims are in regard to him asking the trainer about the weight, where there was a lifting scene that was supposed to be coming up. She claims that the lifting scene never was in the film. And he's like, well, the lifting scene was never in the film because she specifically asked for that scene to be removed. And if you look at this piece of the script that was revealed from, looks like it was script page 52. If you look under it, we have Lily and Ryle. And then on the script, it says, he presses his mouth to Lily's and breathes her in. Lily is so upset, she starts to kiss him back. If any to kiss him back in need of comfort until Ryle scoops her up. So here we see, you know, Ryle scoops her up and kisses her wound, and there's a mix of blood and tears now. And this is, I think, it was after one of the first assault scenes. It looks like close on Lily, closing her eyes, accepting his apology so um, viscerally. By the time she opens them again, it's clear she's convinced herself of one thing: it was an accident. So we can clearly see, and it's underlined where Ryle scoops her up. So there was a lift scene that was initially written into the script, which we can see here from the screenshot of, or the snippet from the script that he shared on this website. So it did exist at one point. It was set to happen. He claims that she didn't want to do the lift scene, I guess, after he asked about her weight, which could be normal of her just feeling insecure. Again, we see, the text messages of her feeling insecure with her body. So if somebody asks about her weight and she's, possibly postpartum, there's, possibly some sort of postpartum depression or just insecurity around her body. These are natural things for her to be facing with these insecurities, but that doesn't mean, like, her feeling insecure with her body and him possibly triggering her in some way do not necessarily equate to harassment, because harassment has to be persistent and it has to be, at least legally, you have to prove that it's deliberate, intentional, persistent, and he's crossing some sort of line or boundary, right? Discomfort does not equal harassment. So I think these three things very confidently dispute her claims of fat shaming. Then we get into the intimacy coordinator, right? Because that was another really big thing that she talked about, was the intimacy coordinator not being present. And people are like, oh, well, the intimacy coordinator should always be present, which actually is not true. People, if they actually understand the role of an intimacy coordinator, it's to help with the choreography and it's to make sure everybody feels safe going into each scene. But the intimacy coordinator does not need to be present for every single intimacy scene. That's why there are discussions and meetings that happen ahead of time. The coordinator reviews the script, it makes sure all the actors feel comfortable and confident, and then they move forward with the scene, right? So first up, we have the text messages between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, and then the screenshot that is shared with another producer, where he clearly shows that there was an intimacy coordinator that was hired. His text messages to Blake, he says, just hired intimacy coordinator who I love. We'll set up a meeting or FaceTime with her next week for an intro. And she said, I feel good. I can meet her when we start. Thank you, though. And then he took a screenshot of that, shared it with the producer, letting them know, hey, she declined to meet with the intimacy coordinator before filming. Now, it does appear at some point she does meet with the intimacy coordinator, because not only do we have, now part of his complaint shares that he had to meet with the coordinator on his own and then take notes and relay those notes back to Blake based off of what the intimacy coordinator revealed, right? So then he shares the notebook with the different notes that were taken with the intimacy coordinator, which he claims is what was discussed with Blake after he met with the coordinator. So not only do we see these notes and all the things that were discussed between Baldoni and the coordinator, but then we also see that there are emails with the team, with legal, and with the intimacy coordinator that confirmed that Blake Lively was aware of all of these scenes. She was aware of all of the details. She knowingly signed her nudity rider, which was in reference to any of these intimate scenes, and she was comfortable, which is confirmed by the actual intimacy coordinator. And we have an email from the coordinator to the Wayfair legal counsel that says, hi, I looked through this and the depiction of the scenes is exactly as discussed with the actors. So that section is ready to go. Thank you for sending, with the coordinator who signed off on the rider, that Blake Lively's nudity rider. So again, we have all of this evidence that claims that Blake Lively did have discussions with the coordinator, didn't want to meet with the coordinator up front, but ultimately everything was approved and she was aware of everything that was going to be happening in these scenes. And if she wanted more clarity, she always had access to the coordinator. And again, according to SAG does not require that there is an intimacy coordinator for the filming of each of these scenes. SAG merely suggests it. And again, as long as actors feel comfortable, they feel confident going into the scenes, which according to this coordinator, Blake Lively did feel confident and comfortable going into these scenes. She was aware of everything that was going on. It seemed like we were all on the same page going into it until things changed. We also have another email that breaks down all of the exact details of each of the intimate scenes that were supposed to be filmed. So we have the first love scene, the Vegas love scene, the frittata scene, and so all of those details are documented with the coordinator via email. And Baldoni even says, "Please note these are." Uh, the way these are shot and what is shown will be a collaboration between me and Blake. And then we have very detailed notes into how each of these scenes is going to be played out. So, intimacy coordinator allegations very clearly disputed by Blake Lively, or sorry, by Justin Baldoni against Blake Lively's claims. So that's the fat shaming. That's the intimacy coordinator. Another really big, I guess, just side notes that are worth referencing. A lot of people were talking about Ryan Reynolds' text messages to Justin Baldoni, which we can see here. There are paragraphs and paragraphs. It seems like all three of them, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni, all very big on writing these novel text messages where you just see all of these paragraphs. We don't need to go into all the details. Some of them, because again, I want to focus on the lies that Blake Lively tried to put out there. But I mean, you can just see that Ryan Reynolds had no problem with Justin Baldoni, was comfortable with him at the start of production, and didn't really seem to be responding to any of Justin Baldoni's text messages until he needed to respond to any of them. But he kind of ghosts him early in production, but at least was comfortable with him and was comfortable with him working with his wife. So from Ryan Reynolds' side of things, it seems strange that he was then worked into this and seemingly had all of these jabs that were taken at Justin Baldoni in the nice pull bit that he eventually ended up filming for Wolverine and Deadpool. We also start to see producers complaining because Blake Lively seemingly wanted to take direction over. I think at one point she had like an assistant director fired because there were creative differences. And so we even have emails or correspondence with Jamie Heath, who's a producer, and one of the other producers that says he cannot let her have options on everything, or she's going to be co-directing this film. Jamie Heath seems concerned. He said, "Yeah, we were talking about it a lot yesterday." Producer says, "Exactly. This is why everybody is starting to lose it. We've been talking about the same thing for months." Jamie Heath says, "Yep, it's starting to get resolved." And then the producer responds, "No, it's not." So it seems like there was definitely some contention with how much creative control Baldoni was giving Blake Lively. We know that there were concerns with the wardrobe, and we then see references where the wardrobe went ridiculously over budget, and it was because Blake Lively, I think they had blown through their budget with just Blake and Baldoni's costumes alone, let alone all the other characters that needed to be dressed for the film, that Blake had already inflated the wardrobe budget. And so part of their strategy was to use these things for filming and eventually return them so that they can save money on the budget. But ultimately, with her new recommendations, the budget was just blowing up. And we know that there were like, a pair of $5,000 shoes that she wanted for the film. She wanted to make sure that her character was wearing Louboutins. It was interesting with the creative direction of the wardrobe, but also there was a designated wardrobe designer that made sure he'd put together these pieces in relation to the creative direction for the film as it related to the book. And so it was kind of strange that Blake had all of these revisions and then wouldn't even show up for fittings. Remember, they claimed that they had to have all of the clothes bust to her directly so that she could try on all the clothes at home. So very much seen, especially with Jamie Heath and one of the other producers, that they were starting to get annoyed with all of Blake Lively's tweaks. And then so there's this other text message that's also just kind of interesting to speak to the tone. We'll get into the birthing scene next, the lie that was put out there about the birthing scene. But at least with this here, I think that this is another really big damning piece of evidence. We have all of these text message correspondence between Blake and Baldoni. And there's one specifically, and this one really stood out to me because in it she refers to, here, I'll just read you. She tells Baldoni, "You're the absolute best. Thank you. And what you did inspired me. I love what we're going to do." And then he emphasized that. And then she writes, "I can send you my pass at the roof or just read with you when we get together next week. Let me know what you prefer. If you knew me in person longer, you'd have a sense of how flirty and yummy the ball busting would play. It's my love language, spicy and playfully bold, never with teeth. And him serving it back to her is just as important. You don't usually see both the man and the woman with such agency and humor. Anyway, I can act it out for you next week to make sure it comes through. Or I can send now. Let me know what you prefer. XX." He said, "Sorry, I was crying my eyes out as the kids and family just left for another 5 weeks and it was a shit show. Yes, send. It's so important to the film and I can't wait to play and find it. I agree so much. Lily needs to be strong and witty and playful and bold. That's why I wanted you. It's also one reason I wanted to age her up. If a woman like you can fall into the relationship, then anyone could. And the more we love them, the more devastating the act 3 is." So it's just interesting how she's telling him, she's letting him know about how flirty and yummy she can be, which to me, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. I'm so yummy and flirty. If this was somebody that you were already uncomfortable with or like starting to have concerns about harassment around, why would you want to talk about how flirty and yummy you can be? Like, it's just, I don't know. And that's not saying that, like, oh, she wore a short skirt. She must be asking for it. I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm just trying to say if you already know or you already believe this person to be, um, inappropriate or like making inappropriate comments, then like why would you then continue to egg them on with, this type of dialogue via text message? It's just it was interesting. But then we get into the other major, I call a flat out lie, and that was the birthing scene where she claimed that she had to film this birthing scene. It was not on a closed set, and she only had like a small piece of fabric that was covering her private parts when she was having to do this. And he hired his best friend to play the OBGYN, yada, 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 right? Well, then we have all of the evidence that kind of disputes that, starting with this production schedule for that scene specifically, which we can see very clearly is, and it's circled in red, that this was a closed set when they filmed this scene per her nudity writer, right? Which was approved and discussed with the intimacy coordinator. So this was a closed set. It wasn't an open set as she was claiming. They also claimed that Sorowitz, who was one of the financial backers of the film, was not on set while while this scene was being shot. Again, that's more he said, she said. I'm just sticking to the actual evidence that disputes her claims, including this call sheet. We also have, she claims that in preparation for this scene, that Jamie Heath showed her what she described as and this is her direct quote from her complaint, a pornographic image. She wanted to make sure that there were no photos of nude women that were shown to her without her permission or consent. And so now we have context as to why that this image was shown to Blake, and it was because she'd never seen a home birth. They were discussing the birthing scene that she was going to be given, which was a hospital scene, not a home birthing scene. But for whatever reason, she said that she'd never seen this. So Baldoni suggested that Heath show her the video with his wife. She referred to it as pornographic and claiming that this woman was nude with her legs spread open. You can see the still shot that they provide. You don't see any nudity. You don't see any private parts. It's a woman, which is Jamie Heath's wife. She's holding their newborn infant. They're under the water in the pool where she delivered the home birth. He's holding her from behind. And so it's a very wholesome post birth moment that was shared. So for her to categorize it as pornographic is just a complete miscategorization of what the actual video showed. It doesn't even appear that they showed her the actual birth, it just shows the after, right? Of after the birthing, after this woman gave birth, after Jamie Heath's wife gave birth, we see them as a family connecting and bonding in the tub together. But you don't see, I mean, technically, sure, her legs are kind of open because she just gave birth, but from the angle of the actual shot, you don't see anything, right? It's a very wholesome video, a very wholesome still shot that we see from this video. They claim that that Blake only saw 1 second of it to begin with. So another very clearly evidenced lie of Blake's. And then not only that, but after the birthing scene, we have these text messages that are highlighted here where Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni tells her, "I'm not going to tell you that you were amazing because you teased me for being so sentimental, but you were amazing today." And she responds, "Thank you. I do appreciate it. I'm just a ball buster, but it means a lot to me. I care a great deal and always want to deliver. You were terrific. I'm proud of everything we did today, but really every day." And he loved it and said, "Thank you." So clearly, you can see by the tone of her text messages, it doesn't appear that she was uncomfortable during this scene at all because she seems to be proud of the work that they did. She also claimed that her body was only covered by a small piece of fabric. Baldoni, in his claim, says that she was actually wearing a pair of briefs during this scene. So, that small piece of fabric being a pair of briefs that she was wearing, again, kind of miscategorizes what actually went on set. They claim that they have footage to back all of that up. That footage has yet to be released. But then she also claimed that he hired his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN in this birthing scene, which has also been disputed at this point because the actor, his name is Adam Mondshein, Mondschein. Mondshein. He played the role of the doctor in the film. Um, yeah, he played, what was his name? Doctor something. He played. I thought I had the name here. But so yeah, he played the role of the doctor that gave the birthing scene. And not only is he a credentialed actor, he played Dr. Dunbar. So not only is he a credentialed actor, he has a master's. Um, like he's a very well dressed and well accredited actor. Um, so it wasn't just Baldoni's friend that he brought on set to play, who is this inexperienced person that had never really acted before that Baldoni brings on set to, give him a peek at Blake Lively. Like it's just kind of wild to me that she would even, that a lot of these allegations just continue to be dismissed and they're very clearly disputed. But it's interesting because which Twitter account that Zack mentioned is live tweeting. Oh, it's called Inner City Press. We'll get to that in just a sec because I want to make sure we at least touch on that a bit. But so, yeah, it's wild that she continues to make these allegations. And again, a lot of this is, context that he adds or like more details into certain things. But at least from the call times, the call sheets, the emails, we have concerned emails from Sony. We have concerned emails from legal. We have producers that are texting back and forth with their concerns about Blake Lively and how she's, altering production schedules. We see that after the writer's strike that once they were able to get back into production, even then she delayed filming because it was supposed to begin, I believe, in November, and then they pushed it to December, and then ultimately didn't end up filming with her again until January. And it was in January that a lot of those more intimate scenes were actually filmed. So when she had that list on January 4th of all these things that she no longer wanted to happen on set, no more of this, no more of that, this was inappropriate, no more of this, when she had that full list of 30 items, they claimed that all of those items, none of the actual like intimate scenes had been filmed at that point because they were scheduled for phase 2 of filming. So just the timeline of it all, it's pretty wild considering he outlines all of it with emails, text messages, call sheets, script excerpts, all of it. And to me, it's pretty clear that, she doesn't have anything against him. When it comes to the gag order, she's fighting to have the gag order upheld. We'll see if that actually happens, but or not even upheld. She's just hoping that it'll go through so that they can stop publishing any of this information. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But it's a really compelling read. It's believe 160 pages that has everything there. Lainey says, "Hey Zach, were you not aware that Scarlett Johansson's movie was made and will be made by Wayfarer Studios with Justin Baldoni as one of the execs?" Yes, I was. I was aware of that. Stir Crazy says gag order is proof that she has something to hide. Yeah, if there's a gag order, again, the filing happened in New York. It's a federal case, therefore she's seemingly trying to prevent. I mean, there won't be, if it's a federal case out of New York, then there will not be any cameras in the courtroom. So we won't see this broadcast like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, or even as we're seeing right now with the ASAP Rocky case here in downtown LA, that has the courtroom has cameras that are covering that case. Rihanna's been in court, but it doesn't seem like we'll be watching any of this play out. So if you don't want it filmed, I mean, Baldoni's the one that is kind of open to the public having access to everything, publishing the whole website, all of the correspondence, the text messages with Ryan Reynolds. All of it is, I mean, even Ryan Reynolds makes like a really inappropriate joke about the perineum, which is kind of like that. It's a very sensitive area in a man's uh, parts down there, you know. Just a lot of their correspondence with Blake and Ryan could seemingly be inappropriate with some of the jokes that they're making, or her saying she's flirty and yummy. That it's just like, it's wild that they're then trying to claim that Baldoni was the one that was sexually harassing people. But yes, I was aware of the Scarlett Johansson connection. There is a new movie that she, I believe, is directing. Wayfair is producing it. So I do love that connection, because obviously Scarlett Johansson is Ryan Reynolds' ex, and she left, or their marriage ended after he filmed The Green Lantern, and The Green Lantern is where he met Blake Lively. So people are saying, ooh, that's a sketchy timeline of him working with Blake Lively on the set of The Green Lantern. Then next thing you know it, after Green Lantern finishes production, Blake Lively breaks up with Penn Badgley. Ryan Reynolds ends up divorcing Scarlett Johansson, and then Ryan and Blake end up dating. So people are like, oh, did they fall in love on the set? Very speculative. Lots of questions, yada, yada, yada. Remember Ryan's letter that he composed for Justin and would insert Man Enough, the name of Justin's book and podcast. Don't forget that No More was the name of the DV group Justin hinted at. Yeah, that's another interesting connection. The organization that Justin Baldoni was working with and wanted 1% of proceeds from the film to be donated to was this organization called No More. And in Blake Lively's list of 30 complaints that she had of what allegedly happened on set, or what she wanted no more of, that was an interesting connection, that the organization is called No More, and she used that language in her list as well, which Baldoni and his team claimed that the list that they were presented with on the January 4th meeting was a list of 17 items, and the list of 30 items that was published in her complaint, was unbeknownst to them. They did not see they didn't see they didn't see the full list, and so they were shocked when that full list of 30 items appeared in the complaint, because they said that also misrepresented what they had taken accountability for. Okay. What else? There's this video that's going around TikTok as well of Ryan Reynolds, and people are claiming was a staged paparazzi picture. As I mentioned, I was just on the Hollywood Raw podcast with Dax and Adam. Dax used to work for TMZ, and he was a reporter for TMZ. And then Adam used to be one of the paparazzi. And so they know this world very well. And so in discussing it with them, I wasn't initially sold on the fact that Ryan Reynolds had staged this paparazzi picture. And so what it is, I believe it's at the Paley Center, and there was an event that was going on there, and Ryan Reynolds is getting out of the car and entering the venue. All these people are there asking for autographs. And so people are like, what a staged photo op, because they all have the same image that they're having, or the same memorabilia that they're having him signed. They're all on these boards. So it seems like this was staged or orchestrated in some way. And so Dax and Adam did provide more context into a situation like that. They don't believe that it was a staged paparazzi photo op. They think that people, because there was some sort of, I think it was like a Marvel event that Ryan Reynolds was going to, it was well known that he was going to be there. You know, typically which doors talent are going to be coming in and out of. I had questions about it being on the boards, because I was like, this just seems like they were prepared to see Ryan Reynolds, but given the context that there was an event going on there that Ryan Reynolds was scheduled to appear at, that does make more sense. It's not like a random location that they happened to find him at. And then Adam made a really good point about there being the people typically have these boards so that they can sell the memorabilia online. And so these are professional, I think he called them professional fans, or not like real organic fans that happen to come across Ryan Reynolds at a random corner in New York, but like people that knew that Ryan Reynolds would be there that were hoping to get his signature. That way they can then sell that online. Very common. You see it a lot. Uh, we've we've seen it a lot with different celebrities where as I guess they're called professional fans, where they have like a clear film that they put over like a poster or a photo or something so that when the celebrity signs it, it's a clear film that they're signing and they're not aware of it because they think they're just signing the headshot. But so they sign that clear film. And so what they do with that clear sheet is they then, because they have the signature on it, will use that to replicate the signature and then publish the signature onto other memorabilia. And so oftentimes actors will not stop and sign autographs for these types of fans because they know that they're just trying to monetize off of their signatures, right? So my theory is Ryan Reynolds probably knew that these fans were going to be there because he had to make this appearance. He knew that this was going to have all of these professional fans that had memorabilia that they were planning on selling. And so, whereas he would typically probably just walk right past them and walk into the venue, I think he intentionally was signing these to make it seem it was partially staged, right? They weren't like his people didn't hire all of these people to show up. They were probably organically there, but I'm sure he wouldn't given them the time of day, knowing that these are likely people that are going to be selling his autograph. So I think he intentionally did it to seem like, oh, I'm a nice guy. See, I stop and I sign things for fans. So was it staged? I don't believe that his PR team planted these people. I think these people knew he was going to be there. And so they went there with the intention of getting his autograph. And he knew he couldn't really look like a dick because his reputation is already hurt. So he wanted to sign it and make it look nice. Mary C says, but they all had some sort of tape and everything on the boards. That's what was odd to me. Yeah, but so apparently this is kind of something that they orchestrate often, and so they're all part of the same crew. And that's how they have the strategy of the boards, and they typically have the same. Because I noticed that too, that everybody like it all just looked too uniform. They all had the same memorabilia. They all had the boards, the same type of tape on the boards. But Adam was saying that that's actually um, not uncommon, that it actually is something that happens often. And since he was one of those paparazzi, or he at least knew the crowd like that, it made sense. Do you think Ryan will have trouble getting jobs, Zach, or will this not affect him? I don't think, at first I did think that this would affect him. I don't think it will anymore because you have to think of like Ryan, his audience are these like straight dudes that like Marvel, right? Like they're not keeping up to date. They're not following my content. They're not watching this right now, right? Like they're cool. They will still watch the Marvel films because they're interested in the Marvel universe rather than they're interested in the drama with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Like his audience is not going to watch It Ends With Us. The only way they would watch It Ends With Us is if their wife drags them to watch the film. They don't care typically. So I don't think that his audience will necessarily go away because I just don't think they care about this type of shit, but they like the movies. And so they'll continue to watch the Marvel movies that have Ryan Reynolds. Now, will women show up to Ryan Reynolds rom-coms? That's where I think it will hurt his numbers, but I don't think that he will intentionally try to go towards more rom-coms. I think he's going to try to stay with these more action films and the Marvel movies, especially since they seem to make a lot of money. So that's Ryan Reynolds. Okay, so I gave you an update on the New York Times lawsuit with the evidence that was provided from Goosh, which, like I said, Blake Lively's team seems to kind of downplay. Then we have the staged paparazzi photos that we just discussed, which don't appear to be entirely staged, but Ryan Reynolds typically seems to be a little more cold when he is out and about and doesn't really seem to be engaging with fans and paparazzi. Whereas in this case, we very deliberately see him paying attention to these people. And I think it's because he knows his reputation is hurt. We have Blake Lively's alleged fat shaming, alleged intimacy coordinator allegations, and the birthing scene that have all now been disputed with Justin Baldoni's timeline. And then here's another really interesting piece, and I'm going to do a screen share with you guys, and then I'll try to get into whatever Inner City Press has been tweeting. If we don't get into much of it, then I'll make sure we cover it more in depth tomorrow, only because I want to make sure that as we're reading the thread, we're able to follow it in a cohesive manner. But there was one other piece that I thought was really interesting from the timeline that Baldoni releases, and I'm gonna do a screen share so you guys can see this. But what I find I didn't know I could do that. What I find so interesting is so we see a lot of these actors that have now distanced themselves from Justin Baldoni, right? They seem to be, like, they're not oh, wait, let me let's do this angle. So they seem to be like not fans of Justin Baldoni. And so what he points out in this timeline is that these actors were actually on very good terms with Justin Baldoni. So when you're filming these movies, what you can do sometimes, or what they do oftentimes, is they tape marketing pieces, right? So like there'll be breaks from production, and so there will be things that are dedicated specifically to the promotion of the film. So there were points where they would pull some of these other actors and film these interviews with them during the production. And in it, they would ask about, what's it like to work with this actor? What's it like to work with this director? It's part of an EPK that they put together for the promotion, right? And so in it, we see that there are other actors like Alex Newsted and Isabella Ferrer, who played young Lily. And so in their EPK interviews, you can see them speaking very highly of Justin Baldoni. So they claim that this was prior to them having a lot more um, one-on-one time with Blake Lively, which they had more time with Blake Lively during the promotion of It Ends With Us, and that seems to be where their tone changed, was after hanging out with Blake Lively. So like here from Alex Newsted, in one of the actors in the film, he says, "I love his energy," referring to Justin Baldoni. "I love his energy, man. He brings so much passion and he cares so much about it, and you can't help but feed off of that. And even though all the turbulence of that scenes that we're doing, it's just that energy and that passion that's really everything. And he's so very creatively open if things aren't feeling right or we need to change. Little things, super flexible, which really makes all the actors more comfortable, I think." And then we have the actress that played young Lily, who says one of the most rewarding parts of being on the It Ends With Us set, she claims, "At least for me, this is one of my very first projects. So I think working with professionals that I've been doing, have been doing these things for a really long time, but who are also so open. The crew and Justin and all the actors that I've worked with just have been so open and welcoming. I've never felt belittled in any sort of way. I think just being able to come into the set and feeling seen and heard and feeling immediately comfortable and go being able to just go into do what I do and not have any anxieties or worries about how I might be, or yeah, I just feel very accepted, I think." So all of their experiences specifically, and then there's a specific question about what's it like working with Justin Baldoni. And the actress who plays young Lily says, "Oh my God, so good. So, 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 so good. He's been so generous with advice and just overall the entire process of letting me observe and really take in everything that he's taken really good care of." I mean, everybody, it seems. And I think there's a lot that's always going on in productions. And I think that he has a really great method of just being able to keep things positive and find ways of uplifting and then going. And then there's also this look at that and look at that. And as an actor who's also first starting, when you're trying to get used to everything, it's really important to have someone go, "That's really good. Okay, now let's look at this." And there's no patronizing. There's no, I don't feel not heard. I always feel like I can go up to him and ask anything. I mean, our first phone call after I got this job, it was a FaceTime. And the first thing he said to me was like, "Whatever you need, whenever, call me." I immediately had his number. And that was an immediate understanding that literally, whatever, if I needed anything, I knew that I could reach out to him. And that was immediately such a comforting feeling that I was just diving into something and not knowing what was going to happen. Yeah. So this is a very detailed answer that she gives, right? Now, like, "Oh my God, it was so fun to work with him," or "Yeah, he was great. He gave me good direction." Like, these actors are giving very detailed accounts of what it was like to work with him. And so it says, "Important to know, Isabella and Alex shared these sentiments regarding their working experience with Baldoni prior to spending time with Blake during the promotional tour of the film," which is when they changed their tune. They even get into Brandon, what is that, Sklenar? Brandon Sklenar, who plays Atlas in the film, and he talks about he also participated in one of these EPK interviews, and he talks about working with Justin Baldoni as well. And so they said, the question was, well, how about this? Did you talk to Justin? Did Justin reach out to you to talk about the piece? Gives a very long answer and says, yeah, I had a phone call with Justin Baldoni, our director. And over the course of that phone call, it became very clear to me that this was and what it meant to the people who have read this book, men and women alike, but largely women all over the world, and how much it helped them. And then also Justin's passion and his intention behind making this film. I think one of the biggest things for me, because he does have such strong intention and you can feel it when you speak to him about it. And I think when creating anything, I mean, that's kind of a paramount in making something halfway decent. And his intention was very strong, and he hires people who have very clear intentions. And I think collectively, the chances of making something this impactful, hopefully as marginally impactful as the book has been, would be a massive success. And I think that was a real eye-opener to me, just hearing him firsthand and what it meant to him and what it's meant to all these people. So Brandon very clearly, and then the interview continues, and he continues to praise Justin Baldoni and continues to praise Jamie Heath. And so we see this entire exchange of Brandon defending or speaking up with his positive relationship and working with these people. So very interesting that these actors had a very different experience with Justin Baldoni prior to spending time with Blake Lively, where their tune sort of started to change, because Brandon was one of the people that didn't directly speak out in support of Blake Lively, but he did post to his Instagram story and linked out to her initial complaint where he says, he was like, please read this. And so, he was telling people to read all of the allegations that Justin Baldoni was accused of from Blake Lively. Which, again, his experience and young Lily's experience and young Atlas's experience, they all had a very different experience with Blake until she came out and was like, I was harassed. Did you see what Candace Owens said? She said something like, hop on my back, Brandon, let's get them. Probably. I didn't see what Candace Owens posted. I know she's been covering it a lot as well, and she's come up with her own theories. I think a lot of her theory, just from what I've heard, because I haven't been able to watch any of her episodes or any of her coverage of it, so I've just been hearing things secondhand. But I think my understanding is her theory is that this originated from Ryan Reynolds, and he's kind of the one that spearheaded a lot of this, and she has people that have reached out to her that have given her more details and context into things, which interesting. Irma says it's possible that he might be awarded way more than $400 million due to the obvious malice by Ryan and Blake, not to mention the sheep actors. We'll have to see, right? We'll have to see what he ultimately ends up getting awarded should it move forward to trial, which at this point, it's not looking too good for her. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up settling. Okay, so that's what the other actors have had to say, but I want to talk about Inner City Press and what they're covering. There's so much. It's like literally a word by word from Inner City Press. So, oh wait, he did a vlog. Vlog 2. Baldoni hearing pre-trial statements were criticized and seemingly shut down. Okay. I'm trying to keep up with his threads, but they're a little all over the place. So I'm going to see if I can find the first one. Lawyer, judge, signaling, Judge Littman, Baldoni's lawyer. Okay, what is the first tweet? Why are there so many? This is not a very clean thread, Inner City Press. In federal court, SD, New York Live, camera and audio recording are not permitted. Yeah, that's right. So we likely won't. This was like the Jen Shaw trial. You likely won't be seeing any of it. Okay. He says, okay, now that Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni hearing, Inner City Press is covering the case, as covers Eric Adams. Okay. All rise. Judge Louis J. Lehman. I have consolidated the cases. I'd like to hear from the Lively party first and the Wayfair and Baldoni party, then the Wayfair and Baldoni parties. I'd like to hear the information I'll need to manage this case, discovery information required, and legal issues. Lively's lawyer says, our plan at docket 49 is no longer feasible. Counsel for Wayfair did not tell us that they plan to file an amended complaint, including a 168-page compendium full of text messages. There is authority to disconsolate cases. Lively's lawyer says, the Times may have gotten its own views. We'd like to confer, given that the Wayfair parties added a new defendant. We have contemplated amending our own complaint. We have 2 weeks to do it. We think we can make it before the trial date, which is March 9th, 2026. So here, Lively's attorneys are saying that they may consider amending their complaint since Justin Baldoni tweaked his complaint against the New York Times. Judge Littman said, so you're suggesting that you'll add new parties by next Friday. How quickly will you serve them? Lively's attorney said, we'll ask them to accept service. If they say no, we'll immediately start trying to serve them. There's one set of lawyers on the other side. Lively's lawyers say, there will be numerous depositions, including on the false light claims. Discovery will involve issues typical in harassment cases and communication by the defendants and their agents and the media, including people who may have been paid. This case involves a number of high-profile individuals, including third parties. Like Taylor Swift. We intended to seek a protective order. There's been a significant amount of leaking materials to the media. We want to list all the parties from the beginning. Judge Lehman says, you each know that the third parties that are going to have interests, whose interests you are going to want to protect, you have a number of high-profile people. Lively's attorney said, we'll submit a protective order by March 11th. The judge says, what about Miss Jones? Lively's lawyer says, we'll see if that case gets consolidated for purposes of discovery. Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, says, we intend to dismiss the California case and go forward here. Judge Lehman says, what have you added in the amended complaint? And then Friedman says, promissory fraud, which I thought promissory fraud was already part of the original case against the New York Times. But so here, Baldoni's attorneys are saying we're going to drop the case in California and file it in New York, so that way it can be all one big case rather than a bunch of little different lawsuits. Baldoni's attorney says, I don't know who the other parties are they aim to add, if they will need separate counsel, but discovery will be the same. Judge says, what far along was the California case? And Friedman said, not at all. It makes no sense to be in two coasts. Friedman says, we're asking to hold Miss Lively's deposition as soon as possible. We don't need any documents to do that. The harms have been ongoing since the New York Times article came out, losses to Wayfair and Melissa Nathan, losing clients. We need to move forward and still have livelihoods. I can work as early as today to know if the new parties can be represented by us. We don't want to delay. Judge says, you'll get document requests. I'm not going to allow depositions now. Damn, I want them to depose Blake Lively now. But the judge said no. Judge says, I don't want depositions to have to be done twice. So no depositions until we know who all the parties are, because now Blake Lively's team is saying that they may be adding new parties to the case. Bring in Taylor Swift. Judge says, Leslie Sloan's representation. Interestingly, Leslie Sloan is now being represented by Sigrid Macaulay. Sigrid Macaulay. Macaulay represented the Jeff Epstein victims. Interesting. And then Leslie Sloan's counsel says, we're going to move to dismiss the false light and civil extortion claims. This is really a case about their crisis management team saying that they're going to bury people. They're just finger pointing at us, and we want to move to dismiss. The judge says, are you moving for a stay of discovery? And then Macaulay says, we shouldn't be subject to it. My client's female-run company shouldn't be subject to this. The judge says, what about interrogatories? They are very standard. And then Leslie Sloan's attorney says, we believe you will dismiss us as a defendant. And then the judge says, let me hear from the parties in the Jones versus Abel, which is the Stephanie Jones lawsuit against Jennifer Abel, because Jennifer Abel used to work at Jones Work PR and had since left. And Stephanie Jones has a lot of allegations against Jennifer Abel, who is Baldoni's publicist. Then we have counsel for Stephanie Jones. A delay makes sense. And then Jennifer Abel's attorney says, my client's company is also woman owned. That's funny because they're like, Leslie Sloan's company is woman owned. And they're like, well, so is Jennifer Abel's. What does that have to do with it? And in the New York Supreme Court, in this case, there was discovery before we removed the case here to the federal. We removed the case here to the federal court. The judge said, Mr. Gottlieb. And then Blake Lively's attorney says, we want to strike 168 pages. What? 168 pages? And then the judge says, what's the purpose of that attachment, Mr. Friedman? And then Mr. Friedman says, to show the basis of our claims, it's going to make discovery easier. We're putting it all out there. And the judge said, there are federal rules designed to prevent. And then Lively's attorney says, look at this. There are images of text messages, then a narrative from a speaker who we don't know who it is. They have been in paragraphs of the complaint, so we can remove under Rule 11. We are prepared to do that now. And then Blake Lively's attorney says, we want your honor to know that they've put it all up on a website that we think is improper. And then the judge says, the Lively deposition will not be taken for now, but Miss Lively does not get to choose who deposes her. No. And then Lively's lawyer said, we'd be fine if they deposed without documents, but there are other parties. And then the judge said, submit a protective order. And then Friedman says only documents that can be accessed by anyone online are on that website. And then the judge says, I'm going to hear from Mr. Gottlieb about the pretrial publicity in this moment. And then the judge says, I'll adopt the case management plan with the following charges. Interrogatories due on March 14th in Jones versus Abel. I'll adopt the plan, except that I'm not adopting the date for the joint pretrial order nor deadline for summary judgment. The judge tells Blake's attorney, do you wish to be the head on the pretrial publicity? And then Blake Lively's attorney said, the issue is straightforward. The conduct of Mr. Friedman has violated New York's rules of professional conduct. They prohibit extrajudicial statements like this. Lively's attorney says, Mr. Friedman has made statements to the media across the country. We've provided a list. He's appeared on the show of his former client, Megyn Kelly. We put him on notice on December 23rd that he is liable and is now a fact witness. And then Lively's attorney continues by saying, their response is, in essence, that Miss Lively started it, but the rules apply to statements of lawyers, and they haven't pointed to any. You can't just speak on and on and on in response. We have not requested a gag order. I thought they requested a gag order a couple of times. Lively's attorney says, we cite the General Motors case in 2015 about lawyers' communications adopting the NYS rules for the federal case. And then the judge says, why isn't the harm addressed by the ethical authorities in New York? And then Blake's attorney says, Mr. Friedman has a pro-hack vice. Their statements are being amplified on social media, and it's very hard to unring the bell. The judge says, give me one or two examples. And then Blake's attorney says, on January 7th, Mr. Friedman said that we are releasing the statements to show an attempt to take over this movie. And then he continues by saying, on his client's show, Megyn Kelly, he said evidence is being planted. He said Blake Lively was no victim, and she used allegations of harassment to try to become the director of the movie. And then the judge says, isn't that in his complaint? And then Blake's attorney says, you're not supposed to launch attacks on the character of your adversary. He is making representations about discovery material. We don't have an opportunity to rebut it. He took a video clip and released it and then commented on it. And then Friedman says, for months before any filing was made in the case, the New York Times giving 12 hours notice to put out an article that completely devastated. And the judge says, you don't have enough evidence that Lively's attorney was behind that. And then Friedman says, they used the press. Were there any other updates since then? That was an hour ago. So they're just kind of going back and forth at this point. After the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni hearing, including on-trial publicity and the gag order inner city press on the case and the First Amendment. And it seems that that's where he left off. Inner city press. So it doesn't seem like there are any new updates as of yet that he has tweeted out at the time of this recording. Blake did start. She did start it. She started it in the New York Times, which at this point you now get to see. So they're now starting to battle it out. So these are the initial hearings. We'll see if the gag order gets upheld. Blake Lively's team is trying to fight against Brian Friedman. It seems like they're trying to claim that he's been unethical in some of the statements that he's made against Blake Lively, which is why they're fighting back on him deposing Blake Lively. So it's all one big hot mess at this point. Christina says, guess we won't see the complete Mean Girl clique at the Super Bowl. Probably not. I would take it that Blake Lively's going to lay a little low, and it doesn't appear that Taylor Swift wants anything to do with her at this point. She's like, leave me be. I want nothing. I would like to be removed from this narrative. Friedman is like Chuck not giving an F. Yeah. Jude says, I'll shorten it for you. No gag order. No gag order. Verbal directions to both to cool it. Nothing is being taken down. Also, Blake's going to have to be deposed by Brian. Is that how it concluded, or is that your prediction? I mean, that's what I would have predicted, that they don't uphold the gag order. The judge is like, all right, both of you need to tone it down with the media and putting things out there, which at this point, I don't think there's anything more Justin Baldoni needs to put out there. There's already been enough that's been published, the amended complaint, the timeline. I mean, the timeline is pretty damning, and all the evidence against Blake Lively in this timeline is pretty damning. Yes, guys, hit the like button, show some love. If you're watching this right now in the live chat on YouTube, hit the like button if you're enjoying this episode. That Judge is strange. The California filings was private. Of course, Blake gave it to the New York Times. Yeah, it was a private complaint that was filed in California, but it appears that the New York Times had already been working on that article prior to the public, or prior to her filing that complaint. One legal website did a poll and Justin has 96% support. I mean, those polls probably aren't the most reliable, but yeah. X-Lady09 says the deposition was postponed because Blake's attorney said that there are other celebrities involved who do not need to be revealed. Do the judge ask Blake's attorneys to file a new protective order? Yes, that's what we read in the correspondence here. So it doesn't seem like Blake will be deposed as of yet. They want to make sure that they keep the other A-list celebrities private. I'm assuming they're referring to Taylor Swift. I believe Bradley Cooper's name has also been floated around as well. So it appears that there are a number of high-profile celebrities that will be dragged into this mess, and they seem to want to have a protective order put in place to protect their anonymity. But at this point, I think it's all going to come out. We're already seeing Taylor Swift get dragged into this. So on another note, did Zack talk about the Babyface interview incident at the Grammys? What was the Babyface interview incident? There wasn't a lot. I mean, I didn't watch the Grammys. If you want to touch on the Grammys, I didn't watch the Grammys. I did see the two biggest standout points were the Bianca and Kanye outfit, where Bianca was basically naked on the red carpet, and I don't know, it looked tacky and attention seeky, and Kim would never be so dumb to just let Kanye use her like his little doll, his dress up doll. It's weird, it's cringe. I don't like Kanye and Bianca. I didn't like her outfit. Again, it just seemed like a desperate attempt at seeking attention. And then there was the Beyonce album that won, and I was just like, really? Totally disrespected him in an interview, mid-sentence, ended the interview for another artist. Interesting. And is Babyface all that relevant anymore? Not Bradley Cooper. Well, Bradley Cooper was brought up in the Reddit post. Remember, people said that he was like one of the people that she optioned her edit to initially. So we'll see if Bradley Cooper gets dragged into it. But the only other note of the Grammys was that Beyonce won Album of the Year for Cowboy Carter. Can we say that? Are we this delusional? Beyonce was a give me her album. Okay, thank you, Tambo. That was one of Beyonce's worst albums ever. And the fact that they gave her the win for that just shows, like, it was clearly a dig at the Country Music Awards, who didn't acknowledge Beyonce Rightfully so. Beyoncé is not a country artist, and her album was not a good album. Like, people put out country albums all the time. It doesn't mean they're good and they're worthy of a country music award. So them doing this at the Grammys just like felt so. I mean, this, if anything, this tells you how fixed Hollywood is and how fixed all these awards are. Beyonce did not win that off of merit. Beyonce has some great music. Have been a fan of Beyonce. I've said in the past, I loved when Beyonce was part of Destiny's Child. I loved a lot of Beyonce's earlier music from the 2000s. The Alien Superstar one and the Cowboy Carter, not her best albums. And even Cowboy Carter, I made this argument on the Hollywood Raw podcast. This ain't Texas, ain't no hold 'em. Like, that whole song wasn't even that good of a song. The only reason it became popular is because people were using it all over TikTok. It's, if anything, just catchy. I compared this Texas Hold'em to Cars for Kids. Na 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 Cars for Kids. Na 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 Cars for Kids. Should the Grammys nominate Cars for Kids to be, single of the year? Just because it's catchy and just because people happen to note it because we hear it a million times on TikTok doesn't mean it's actually good. Beyonce did not deserve to win Album of the Year. She did not deserve to win Best Country Album. There were many other country stars that I think definitely outperformed her. That didn't need to be like, it's obvious that Hollywood is so, even Kendrick Lamar winning so many awards, right? Like, Lamar, who is, performing at the Super Bowl, that is Hollywood and the music industry basically giving the middle finger to Drake because Kendrick Lamar and Drake are in this beef right now. So they're aligning with Kendrick and letting everybody know that, Kendrick is who they're siding with, not with Drake. So it's obvious. Like, once you start to see the smoke and mirrors of the Wizard of Oz, which is, who runs Hollywood, like, you start to see how these things are all fixed. That's why I gave up on these award shows. They're not real. They're not based on merit. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Grammys is so tired. I saw the whole show. I mean, I'm sure the performances were great. Um, but I mean, come on. Beyonce's Cars for Kids single it wasn't that great of a fucking album of a song. And nobody, listen, they also referenced that apparently Miley Cyrus and Beyonce did a song together on Cowboy Carter that literally nobody heard. Like, nobody know, like, I was like, what? Beyonce and Miley Cyrus did a song together and it's being like recognized at the Grammys? Like, say what? I think it won, like, or it was nominated for best collaboration. Literally nobody knows that song. Beyonce ain't country. She's not country. She's just not. It's wild though, but it's also wild considering Jay-Z's connection to Diddy and Jay-Z being named in the lawsuit and how, like, Hollywood is coming to get pulling out all the tricks at this point. But people have become so savvy to it. It's ridiculous. Please don't get my Zack riled up. Oh, you don't get you riled up or don't get me riled up. I'm already riled up about this bullshit. This ain't Texas, ain't no Hold'em. Actually, this is Hold'em because you're holding the Grammys hostage with your album that was a flop. Okay. Even if people tuned into it a lot, the way that the albums and music is recorded now are very different from the way that it used to be recorded before. Iris says, disagree. The origins of country music is based on Black culture. I prefer Black country artists to white artists. Agree that the Grammys are rigged, though. Iris, what? Nobody's disputing, the Black culture contribution to country music. All I'm saying is the Grammys are rigged and Beyonce's country album sucked Jay-Z's balls. So, Grammys are rigged. But listen, if you wanted the album to, if you wanted a DEI award and you wanted to give the album to a Black artist to acknowledge Black culture's contribution to country music, great, then give it to a Black artist and call it a DEI win. But Beyonce getting that was not earned off of merit. I stand by that 10 toes down. Her album fucking sucked. If she put out a good country album, I would be like, you know what? Beyonce came out and she's definitely genre bending and she's coming out and she hit it out of the park. But she didn't hit it out of the park at all. She didn't hit it out of the park. The album sucked. It was a flop. This ain't a racist thing. Move on. It's not. It's literally just something that was the same way Kendrick Lamar is being praised by the music industry right now, which is not based off of merit, I don't believe. I believe it's an intentional snub at Drake. You can't say that's racist because they both happen to be black. Post Malone put out a good country album. Yes, he did. I heard people, I didn't listen to it, but I've at least heard feedback saying that they enjoyed Post Malone's album over Beyonce's. Pop and country, okay. R&B and country, not okay. It's the same. It's not the same. Yeah. Kendrick Lamar's song was good, but 5 awards. Yeah, 5 awards was a bit excessive. This ain't Texas. Mother of Cat said Taylor didn't show up and present on the award a random country artist she knew it was going to Beyonce. Yeah, that was all staged. Taylor Swift presenting the award to Beyonce. It was all staged. Chaperone got a standing ovation for her speech on providing health care for new artists. Good for her. Good for Chaperone. God, if there's anybody more insufferable than Prince Harry and Meghan, then it's definitely Chaperone. Can't call me racist for calling out Chaperone. I don't like her either. Oh, am I anti-woman now because I dislike Chaperone because I think she's so disrespectful to her fans? And she, like Meghan and Harry, hate the media. They hate the publicity. They hate the attention. Don't give me attention. Don't give me attention. But yet they continue to expose themselves in public settings. Please. Beyonce looked tired and mature. Well, I mean, listen, she's not in her 20s anymore. That's not I think she looks incredible still, you know? Christopher said, "First of all, none of the country artists have ever gotten that much pull on their own. It's a moment to help other black country artists get attention. Her winning helps others that get ignored." Okay, so we intentionally gave her the award not based on merit, is what you're saying. We intentionally gave her the award not because it was a good album, but because we wanted to make sure we help other black country artists get attention. Got it. So it's to put a light on other black country artists, not because Beyonce's album was good. I think we're in agreement on that. It was virtue signaling. It was a fake win. It was a faux award that had no talent or merit behind it. It was a DEI award. Thank you, Christopher, for clarifying that for us. I'm glad that we settled that. Max said they're siding with Kendrick because they are anti-immigrants and xenophobic. Kendrick is from Canada. Just kidding, obviously. Oh, I was like, what? I was like, don't listen. They were out here protesting in downtown LA about immigration because I guess Selena Gomez was crying on the internet, and so everyone wanted to go and block the freeways to protest immigration, which was very strange because I think there's a lot of like I don't want to say misinformation because I hate that term, but like I'm very confused as to why everybody's like fighting about the immigration policies now when nobody really seemed to care this much when Obama was running his strict immigration policies. And now suddenly, because it happens to be this new administration, people are like so, anti-immigration, which I think that we need strong borders. And I believe that our country was built on, we're a melting pot. We're built on a community of immigrants, right? I originated from immigrants that weren't, well, my family's from Texas. So I guess that's a little up in the air in terms of who was here first. But yeah, I mean, I didn't understand. I was talking with one of my friends this morning. She's like, "How are the protests? Are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm fine. They were blocking the freeway. But I was like, I don't understand what they're protesting exactly. That was the part that was a little confusing for me. Is it's like, what exactly are they protesting? Because the priority, as Tom Homan, who's our newly appointed border czar, he's made it very clear, as has this current administration, that the priority is to remove people that have committed crimes, that are, have a criminal record. Those are the first people that are on their way out. And then I was listening to Tom Homan discuss his approach to immigration. And if anything, I actually felt like he had a lot of empathy for immigrants and had a lot of respect for, immigrants that come and help our economy flourish and help what make our country great about being this melting pot, right? Where we all have such, culture and diversity that we bring to the table. But I was also enlightened, and I can give Selena Gomez credit for this because I didn't really look into immigration much until Selena Gomez went crying on the internet about it. But I learned that there are 600,000 people that are here illegally that have a criminal record. And those are the people that they're starting to approach, the people that have committed crimes or that have a criminal record that are here illegally, right? On top of that, I was enlightened to learn that there were 1.4 million people that are here seeking asylum and were denied their asylum status, right? Which, if you combine the 600,000 people that have a criminal record with the people that were denied asylum that are still allowed to stay here in our country, like that's 2 million people. So when you hear the terms mass deportation, the priority is to focus on them, right? Apparently, we have an issue with, people that are seeking asylum because according to Tom Homan, who is our newly appointed border czar, 9 out of 10 people that come here seeking asylum don't actually need to seek asylum. They're trying to cheat the system, right? And he wants to make it clear that like the people that are seeking asylum should absolutely be able to utilize that system. But unfortunately, there are other people that have abused that system that are applying for asylum. 9 out of 10 is crazy. That means only one person out of 10 that is seeking asylum actually needs it. So there are 9 other people that are trying to cut in line in front of them, which is blocking the entire system. And so when you have 1.4 million that were denied an opportunity to seek asylum because they didn't qualify, and then they're still here and don't have citizenship, like that's the part that's kind of crazy. And it's like there has been a big mess. And in order to protect our borders, I do think we need stricter policies, the same way we needed them when Obama was president. And he was one of the strictest on immigration policies. So it is just kind of wild. So that's why I'm like, why are all these people blocking the freeways right now to protest? Because Selena Gomez says that her people are under attack. I'm Mexican. I think I'm technically one of her people, but I mean, unless she's referring to the 600,000 that have a criminal record that are currently being targeted to be, removed from the US. I'm just a little confused as to, what's going on here. As a Canadian, we're screwed. People can't afford groceries. The Canadian dollar is awful. We're in big trouble. Well, I don't know. A lot of people said they want to leave the US. So I'm just like, all right, if you guys are citizens or you want to leave the US, you want to go to another country, why don't you go to another country and see how easy it is to become a citizen there? It's wild. I was told prices would magically fall down if, well, I mean, it's literally been a matter of days. We're not even a month in. It's literally been days. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Politicians with their pockets full of lobby money will be fine, of course. We'll have to wait and see. It's just crazy. Did Christopher get mad at me because I called Beyonce a DEI win? I mean, that was literally the point that you made for me, Chris. You're like, that it's not because her album was good, it's because she's setting the stage for others. And mainstream media has exposed itself to all be fake. Thank you, Chris. I mean, we're seeing it right now with, the way that they're siding with Kendrick Lamar, the way Beyonce got her fake Grammy, with Selena Gomez putting out her misinformation, with the way the New York Times colluded with Blake Lively to take down Justin Baldoni. Like, it's all kind of there. Like, where people are just now becoming, aware of it. All administrations have deported people and will continue to do so if your papers aren't in order. Literally every country has the rules regarding citizenship that should be respected. Great point. I agree. That's why I'm like, why is everybody so up in arms about having the 600,000 people that are in our country that are, one, not here legally, but two, also have a criminal record? Why is it a bad thing that we're trying to remove them? Like, why are we blocking the freeways over that? Is Kendrick Lamar playing the Super Bowl? Yes, Kendrick's going to play the Super Bowl along with SZA, which to me was just kind of strange. Yeah. In Candace Owens' voice, him too. Yeah, I think Candace said that she had some. Maybe I'll watch Candace's show today. She said that she had some big Baldoni bombshell that she was going to be dropping, or some like into the case, not against Baldoni specifically, but she said she had some info that she was going to be dropping. I think not a bot. Brittany said. I think that's why Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds versus Justin Baldoni is so fascinating. It's exposing so much in the media in Hollywood. It's just wild. Yeah. Lynette said, Zack, I just subscribed. Thanks for keeping it real. Thank you. Candace is 15 minutes in. Oh, okay. Well, let me go pop on over to Candace then. Thank you, Zack, for common sense. Obama was the deporter in chief. Yeah, that was what was wild. Was Beyonce, or not Beyonce. Obama was the most strict on immigration. Like, it's wild to me. I'm like, what? Like, Trump's like, let's get rid of the people with the criminal record. And Obama was like, go. Like, Obama was the one that like, people, when they were sharing the photos of the kids in cages, and then I didn't even realize that was the policy Obama put in place. And not only that, but the photos, a lot of the photos that were being used at that time to say that Trump was putting kids in cages, a lot of those photos were images that were taken during the Obama administration. But that's how the press manipulates things, is they'll take those photos and make them seem like they're happening right now. It's just kind of crazy. Listen, I'm not trying to give a safe home to all the Trumpers, but I'm also just like, common sense is common. Like, the reality is the reality, and we got to call it out, you know? It's wild. It is wild. Obama's administration was not based on hate, especially against a specific group. There's a big difference. But who's to say, what group are we specifically hating on? Because if we're not, because I mean, are you saying that when Trump calls out the Venezuelan gangs, that's something that he's angry about the Mexicans about? Because Mexicans and Venezuelans are two very different things, right? And then there was also, remember, there was the joke that was made at one of his rallies about the Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans and Mexicans also very different. So if you're lumping them all into one category, Iris, it kind of feels like maybe you're the one that's being racist, because, like, actual Mexican person here, right? That's my dissent. I don't think that I should be lumped into the Puerto Ricans or the Venezuelans, right? I don't even like the association with lumping me into the Venezuelan gangs that were hijacking the neighborhoods, right? So I don't know. If you're putting this all together, I think that that's a little more racist. But you do you, boo. Trump got the Hispanic vote. Yeah, in Texas, especially border towns. Yeah. The reason you don't believe that Obama's intentions were racist, and I'm not saying that they are, because I don't think Trump's intentions are racist the same way I don't believe Obama's intentions were racist. But the reason you think Trump is racist is because that's what the media tells you, right? So didn't he nominate people that happen to be Hispanic in his cabinet? Just like how Trump hates gays, right? But then he, like, is nominating people that are gay to be in his cabinet. I don't know. It just doesn't always add up when I use my brain, But it is what it is. I'm Hispanic too, and not a second generation, so no assimilation here. Trump is the one that lumps all Hispanics together. Really? Because he didn't, but you are right now. So, are you getting a press pass at the White House? No, I'm not. I would have to go to DC to sit in those press hearings. So, like, no, that wouldn't make much sense. Okay, we're over time. I am a first generation American of a Mexican descent, and I voted for Trump, and I am not racist. That's the thing, that I think there are a lot of people that are now breaking that mold, right? Like Hispanic people that voted for Trump, or Black people that voted for Trump, or women that voted for Trump, which at first you were being told that you're voting against your best interest. But now I think people are just tired of being told what they're supposed to do. And I think people are waking up, and whether you agree or disagree, like, it's your right, and it's your choice to cast your vote how you want to cast it. So, yeah, tis what it is. But yeah, Zack is such a delight. Well, thank you. Anyone who calls Trump a racist doesn't know what racism is. Well, that's the thing, is we kind of use that term too loosely for the last 5 years, that I think people are just now kind of waking up to how ridiculous some of these claims are. But yeah, first time in a live with you, and this is such a refreshing take. Thank you, XLady09. Thank you. This was all written out in Project 2025, and nobody paid attention. Oh no, has Project 2025 resurfaced? That's like the liberal QAnon, right? Project 2025 is literally the liberal QAnon conspiracy theory. It's funny anytime people reference that. But all right, there you go. There it is. It's happening. They're coming for you. Is this now a tramp channel? I don't think it's a tramp. Are you calling me a tramp? Are you sex shaming me? Candace is live in 10 minutes. All right. I'm going to head over to Candace Owens to see what juicy bits. I haven't watched her show in a minute, but I'll go watch it today, because, got to make sure I give her credit next time I steal her content. All right, guys. Love you. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of your Monday. Wow, this was an extra long episode that I didn't intend to go extra long, but we covered a lot. All right. Kristen Doty didn't give birth yet. Yes, I know. All right. Thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. Let's get it, get it, get it. All right. Give me a follow, Just Plain Zack, if you want to keep up with me all over the internet. Zack Peter, go give me a follow. Follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack on Instagram. And I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. Let's get it. Christopher said, I thought you were Asian. I know most people I almost said misgender me. Most people get that wrong. But there you go, making assumptions, Christopher. Gave you a birthday shout out, and then you went from lumping me in with the Venezuelans and the Puerto Ricans, and now I'm Asian. Look at that. Thank you for judging me. All right. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Let's get it. Get it. Get it. And leave me a nice Apple Podcast review or a mean one because you guys like to do that too. But either way, sending you love. Bye, guys. Bye, 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 bye.